Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm Tova Kopan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast. We are so very excited to have you with us today. It's interview day. I know, I get very excited and a little shouty about interview day. This is Riley, and as always, I am very, very happy to be here talking to everyone today, and I'm here with my amazing, wonderful, fantastical, delightful, all good things co-host, Tova, and we are about to interview a new guest on the show. But before we do that, I want to say hello to Tova and see what's happening with you today, Tova. I'm changing up the intro again. I know.
You
it's
are.
Crazy. It's wild.
You're keeping me on my toes. You're keeping me on my toes.
Change is good.
Change is good. Speaking of change, it's the fall. So that's
Yes.
a fall season. I love it. It's a rainy Monday, which I can lean into. So I'm going to.
Enjoying the rainy Monday.
If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, that's true. No, I am feeling the rainy Monday as well. I feel like it's one of those days where I could have just stayed in bed today, to be honest.
Yes.
And, read a book and try it again tomorrow. But not in like the sad way, not in the like, I'm so sad and tired way, more in the, I was cozy and I had new sheets on my bed.
No, it's it's a good day to not go anywhere.
Yeah. I could have embraced my power in bed this morning.
Excellent. Well,
take that as you will. But yes, we have.
Speaking of embracing our power.
Today. Yeah.
Yes, we do. So we are very, very excited today to be joined by Jennifer Thibodaux. Jennifer is the founder of JMT Speaks. She is a seasoned professional speaker and writer who draws on 17 years of experience as an attorney and storyteller. She is obsessed with helping professionals find and embrace their authentic selves. She is also a full-time senior attorney editor at Thomson Reuters and was previously a partner at the law firm of Gibbons in Newark. A little more about Jennifer. So she focused on commercial litigation, class action defense, all sorts of good things and exciting things if you're a lawyer in her 11 years of practice. She believes, and this is why we're not excited to talk about, commercial litigation, but we are very excited to have her join us because she believes in women supporting and empowering other women. She is a member of the editorial board of the Women Lawyers Journal for the National Association of Women, an executive committee member of the Women's Leadership Committee at Seton Hall, and a longtime trustee of Partners for Women in Justice, a nonprofit dedicated to providing pro bono legal services to domestic violence survivors. So we are very, very excited to have her join us. Welcome, Jennifer. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. And I really hope we're not going to talk about commercial litigation today, Tova. I really hope this was not a big trick.
No,
it definitely was not.
I will rapidly reject that idea. We're not talking commercial litigation today.
Good. I'm very glad to hear that.
No, we are really, really excited to have you on the show and to talk to you about embracing your power and, about how you do that in your personal life and how you help other women do that as well. Because obviously, you have an entrepreneurial mindset. You have a mindset that is focused on helping other women grow and thrive. I would like to kind of start this conversation, though, from a more personal perspective. And we ask all of our guests the same question, and it's definitely a personal question. And that is, can you think back to, whenever it was the first time you truly felt powerful in your life?
as I think about this question, the one image that really comes to mind for me is when I was a little girl, probably about 8 or 9 years old, and I was sitting at my piano recital performing. And I know that might be a little bit of an odd response, but the backstory on that for me is I was a really shy kid. I was a little bit nerdy. I wasn't in the cool group. I had friends, but I kept to myself. I wasn't athletic, but piano was different for me. I started playing at 8. It was clear that I had a natural gift and I loved it. So I practiced a lot and I became very advanced at a very young age. And I remember being at my recital, and I'd always play second to last or last. We were organized by our skill level. And I would pause in between my pieces. I would always play three, and the room would erupt in applause. And I thought, here I am actually commanding a room full of adults. And I think of that because it really, at the time, I wouldn't have called it power. I think I felt proud and excited, but it was me using my voice in a different way. And now, as an adult, I really equate using your voice with stepping into your power. So that image to me is what comes to mind when you talk about that earliest memory. It's that.
Yeah. Can you remember, did you have any sort of physical feeling associated with it? Or was it purely, in your head? How did it feel like physically to you or emotionally to you at the time? And then versus now looking back? Because I agree, there's like, there's the hindsight of it all of, oh yeah, that was power. And of course it was. But at the moment, do you remember what you were feeling when you were sitting there? Did you have like emotional reaction to it?
I do remember, I remember my heart pounding, like just out of my chest. And I remember standing at the end and like my smile was so, so wide. I was so excited. I felt so proud, but it was that heartbeat. It was like, it was like a drum. It was really the best way to describe it. And
Yeah.
that will always stay with me.
Yeah.
Did so I'm flashing back to myself, and like I used to do horseback riding, but I didn't do it with any friends from school or anything. So I would go to a show on the weekend and I'd ride horses and I'd get ribbons or not get ribbons, but no, like it was like a secret world, right?
Mm.
Um, do you remember anything shifting, either like actually shifting or shifting within you going back to school where you were still probably nerdy and shy and had your friends after you've had this like really powerful experience?
It's a really astute question because I did have some students in the piano recital with me, right? And I remember thinking, and maybe I should admit to this, wow, I'm so much better than them. They're so much cooler than me in school, but I'm so much better than them at piano. Like, right? Like, who would have thunk it? I don't remember any sort of a shift because I think back at school, right? This was like after school at 7 p.m. or on a Saturday. That I don't remember. It was in the evenings. You just fall back into your social roles. It really wasn't until I started using my voice more as a teenager and getting involved in extracurricular activities that I think I felt more of a shift. And that was really the confidence in myself when I found my voice. But then, unfortunately, not. Or fortunately, it builds character.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a common experience for kids, right? Even the
Sure.
kids that don't appear to be experiencing that kind of thing. I think most kids feel awkward and most kids feel like they don't fit in or they don't belong in some way, and then all pretend like they feel as if they fit in or as if they belong, which is an unfortunate reality. But back to the conversation around power, we also like to ask the sort of the flip side question, right? Of when do you feel the most vulnerable? When do you feel, or when have you felt the most vulnerable or the least powerful? And we frame it as the weakest, but I don't know. I'm not sure I like that word personally because I don't see it as weakness. I see it more as vulnerable and open to change. But that's an optimistic way of looking at it.
Well, there's so much to unpack though in that question, right? Because I agree
Yeah.
with you just at the jump that for years I didn't like the word vulnerable because I thought it meant weak. That was
Right.
such a bad thing, right? Maybe that's the lawyer's mindset, like, oh, your complaint is weak. It's subject to motion to dismiss or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. I promise I'm not going to talk about commercial litigation, but
yeah.
I have realized that vulnerable really is synonymous with being authentic because it's about being honest. It's about showing up as who you are and being okay with putting that out in the world. So in response to your question, the times that I've felt the most powerless and that lack of autonomy are honestly, it's like death by a thousand cuts because when I was a commercial litigator, I could never accept and I never really came to terms with the fact that I didn't have control over my schedule. And that to me was such a powerless feeling. And both know how it is. You think your day is going to go one way and it goes a completely different way. And you're constantly at the whim of the courts, the clients, the senior partner, and everything is changing. And maybe I could have done better with boundaries. I definitely could have, but I felt like my life wasn't my own. And the best way I can describe that is just powerless.
Yeah, I certainly can relate to that. I'm sure Tova can. Yeah, I think any lawyer, frankly, could relate to that experience.
Did you, when you were feeling that way, um, did you, obviously you found your way out of there, but and found a different path. But did you feel like this is the way it just is, like this is I'm just resigned to this life? Or did you have it even then thinking, this is the way it is for now, and I'm going to find and I'm going to get out of this? Not to say that you didn't enjoy the work you were doing, but I think there's for me, for a long time, I just thought that's the way life was, and that like everybody else was miserable too. And then I realized, no, some people like it and they're just fine. Um, and I wasn't, and I needed to find my way out. So when you were kind of in the midst of it, did you feel like this is it? And I just have to slog through and figure out how to live this life that's not very powerful? Or did you always know that there was something else?
It was really the former, Tova. I really thought like this is it. I have to accept it. This is the way it's going to be. Slog is a great way to put it. You feel like you're just running those back-to-back marathons and you could never stop and take a break. As I've said before, it's a pie eating contest and your prize for winning is more pie, right? You're working, you think that this is it. This is my life. I have no control over, whether I'm working this weekend. I'm going to stop making plans with family and friends because I'm tired of canceling them, right? So it really wasn't until I was truly done, like my mindset was there towards the last several years of my practice, that I started realizing it is time to take my power back. This lack of autonomy I feel is often self-imposed. I need to set boundaries and it is time for me to figure out what else I can do. But there were a lot of emotions around that because I thought, you know, I'm scared. I'm scared to stay. I'm scared to go. I don't know what else I'm going to do. I always wanted to be a lawyer since I was a teenager. Now I'm embarrassed. Like I
Thanks
achieved this
so
goal.
much for
Now I don't
listening
want
to
it.
We Go
Watch what you
Boldly
wish
podcast.
for. And
We know you're
what the
busy
heck
and we
else
love
is
spending
there
time
out
with
there
you.
for me as a
If
litigator?
you enjoyed this week's episode,
Are my
let us
skills
know.
going to translate to do
Head
anything
to
else?
Apple
So it was a very
Podcasts
emotional
right now
time, but
to
it
rate and
started
review
with,
our show.
as I say,
While you're
stepping into
there,
that
be
power
sure
to take
to
control.
click that subscribe
But
button.
for a long time,
Want more
I did
us
not
time?
feel that way.
Follow us on
What was
all the
the
socials at
catalyst,
Go
or
Boldly
what was
Together.
the sort Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.
It's not going to be made for you, generally speaking. It's not going to just be handed to you. You have to make the choice. And so I'm curious to hear, like, obviously you made a choice at some point. Okay, well, this isn't working. I'm not happy in this. And it doesn't have to be forever. So what was that? Was there a moment? Was there a thing? Was there something in your life? What happened?
I would say the first moment was really a light bulb moment for me, not long after I made partner. This was something I wanted for nearly 20 years. As crazy as that sounds, I made partner, and then I thought, wait a second. I don't think I want the next promotion, which would have been becoming an equity partner at the firm. I'm like, I don't want my boss's job. I can't imagine actually practicing law for another few years, never mind the next several decades of my life. I was only 34 years old. And that was just like a slap in the face. I was like, I cannot believe I'm thinking this. And apparently I've just been spending so long trying to like reach for and grasp this brass ring that I've never thought, do you like this? Are you happy? Is this the best use of your strengths? It was just like achieve, 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 like an achievement junkie. And then, I actually got what I wanted, and I was very surprised that I didn't want it. And I kind of sat in that space for a while. Like I said, I didn't know, well, what am I supposed to do now? Right? Like, am I supposed to walk away from this? I've invested so much, I've achieved so much. What are people going to say? I had to kind of get my mind around letting that go. And then, really, after I had my son, who's going to be 6 soon, I realized I had become so cynical. I was just this negative person. And hopefully people who know me now agree that that is not the way I am at all. I'm not like a toxic positivity person, but I am a positive person.
Yes.
I like to think I have a growth mindset, but I was just a real, I don't know, I wasn't great. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to be the mom that I want to be, it kind of lit a fire for me. Like, you've got to make a change. And that was when I left.
I have so many questions. I don't even know where to start. And part of it is because, so I'm laughing because our first season where we had guests was about faith and transformation. So we could just spend all of this time talking about your transformation. And then our last season that we just did was on that concept of busyness, right? And we talked about like making sure the goals, like we love goals. We're big fans of goals, but continually analyzing whether the goals you're reaching for are goals you actually want to achieve, right? Because sometimes we get so caught up in the goals and getting them that we forget that we actually don't want to get them. But I'm not going to ask any of those questions because we'll just have to have you here forever. So what I would like to know.
That's okay.
Yeah, no,
I have so much to say.
And you touched on like every single one of our seasons. It was amazing.
Yeah,
I was like, we have a lot of synergies, ladies. Lots of synergies here.
Oh my gosh, fantastic.
So I know you talked about playing the piano as a child. Were you, but you also said you wanted to be a lawyer since high school, basically. So were you encouraged to pursue your passions, or were you sort of hitting those milestones of college, law school? Like, where were you encouraged to go?
So I'm very much self-motivated. My parents obviously loved the fact that they had a kid who loved to play piano and wanted to be a lawyer, right? That was great in the 80s and 90s. I took piano lessons throughout high school, and it was my decision to actually stop. I think it was my senior year because I was just too much. It became too much pressure, right, with trying to study for the SAT and get the right grades for class rank in college. And my parents were okay with that. Sadly, today, if you ask me about piano, I have a piano in my house and I tinker with it, but it is a very far fall from grace because I put it on the back burner now for, many decades, and I'm just not good anymore. So the motivation to become a lawyer for me was my experience doing mock trial in high school. And I know, again, this is just playing right into that nerdy girl that I was, and that's cool for me. I just found my voice when I tried out to do this, and I absolutely loved it. So I pursued that dream, and from age 15 to 34, that's what I worked on. But I will say this, I know there's a lot to unpack and we have so many synergies. Like I said, when I was looking to leave the law, to leave private practice, at least, I had to really think about those core values. Like, who am I? What's important to me? Because I lost all of myself, my identity and my worth in my position at the firm and being a lawyer in private practice. So I had to take a step back and think about those core values. And it took losing the plan I had for myself to find myself.
Yeah, so you just answered my next question, which is fantastic. This is the best way to do an interview. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to ask you more about that process and what that looked like for you. So we'll be right back, everyone. Hey, Tova, you know what I love?
Coffee, definitions, uninterrupted reading time.
Okay, all of those things are true, but I also love maps.
As in Siri, take me to the beach.
Yeah, also as in who am I really and who do I want to be?
Yeah, I figured that's what you meant, but I also have the beach on my mind. So,
Well, we were talking about things we love, so that definitely makes sense. But the map I was thinking about is our Defining You course.
yes, we put together Defining You as a way to map where you are and how you want to live your life.
So true. So many people struggle to find their purpose in a busy and noisy world.
That's why we made Defining You, our course meant to guide you to creating your own mission statement.
And there's good news. You can get it now on teachable.com. Find the link on our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/courses, or check out the link on our Instagram bio at Go Boldly Together.
We can't wait to see you there. Now, let's head back to the show.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. And before the break, you were talking about how, you kind of just lost yourself in your job, in your career, and you lost your sense of core values and who you were. And so, one of the things that we have been talking about with people in terms of embracing your power is how do you once you turn back to that process of embracing your power, right? And once you start moving forward in power, in your own power, how do you make sure that your decisions are stemming from that sense of yourself, your core place of power, versus what other people might be expecting from you, or your social conditioning, or what you thought might have been what you were going to do, right? Which is something we all experience, I think, anyway, most of us experience in our lives, that sort of check the box existence that a lot of us live. So how did you manage that process? Because personally, having left the practice of law as well, I know, and having experienced my whole identity being wrapped up in that as well, it's a really hard thing to do. How did you manage it? What did that look like for you?
Well, it was a really ugly truth. Like, let's be honest. Like, it was really difficult and it was really ugly to think, well, I have lost myself completely in a job. If you would have asked me, who I was, 5, 6 years ago, I'd be like, oh, I'm a partner at a law firm. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, a daughter, and a friend. Like, but partner, that was it. That's what I saw myself as, because I thought that was my value add. Like, I equated that with my worth. So when I talk a lot about identifying and embracing your authentic self, it really is about getting to know who you are, recognizing that that is going to be ugly, and doing a core values exercise. I had to think back to an exercise I completed during my senior seminar in college. And you ladies will laugh when I tell you at the end of this what the name of it was. Where we walked in one day, there were 12 of us in this class. We sat at this U-shaped table because it was so small. And we walk in, we're all kind of scratching our heads because there's like this stack of strips of paper at everyone's desk. And we pick them up and they say words like faith, integrity, respect. And our professor explains these are core values. She led us through this exercise where we had to work through a hypothetical and start eliminating them to get down to, let's say, 3 to 5 core values. And she explained, this is your moral compass now. This is going to actually guide you as you navigate life after graduation and you make decisions. So the name of that class was Women in the Workplace. And you just have to wonder, like, were the men taking this class and actually undertaking this exercise? No, but I did. And then, 20 years later, or I guess 10 years later, actually, I'm not that old. 10 years later, I actually repeat this exercise as a woman in the workplace. And I realized, okay, my values have kind of been the same, but I've reshifted them, and I've prioritized achievement above everything else. So I need to actually reorder my values and redefine success in order to make sure I am living an authentic life. And that takes some hard work. And it really is truth telling when you sit down and do it. But for me, it's been everything, because that's how I make decisions now. Am I going to, miss my kids, baseball game to work, or am I going to make a different choice? And these are questions I never would have thought to ask years and years ago, because it was all achievement and my work is me, no more.
Right. And so a lot of that is around redefining success, right? And making it make sense for you. And it's also about self-worth, and where do you garner your self-worth from? And does it exist outside of achievement, right? And I think something we talk about, well, I know something we talk about all the time on the show is that self-worth exists, period. And it has nothing to do with achievement or, anything you do in your life, outside of your life, anything you produce, anything. It just is. We are worthy because we exist. And something that particularly women have not been taught or trained in is that we are worthy, whether we are parents, whether we are workers, whether we are not workers, whether we, wear tight clothes or not wear tight clothes, whether we're a size 0 or a size 1X. We're worthy humans. And it's so frustrating to constantly have to remind ourselves, because the world is trying to tell us the opposite, that we are worthy and we don't have to do anything to be worthy. And I obviously I'm on my soapbox again. But it's so
I was going to say preach. Amen.
I'm sorry. It's just so frustrating, because we've all, we're all obviously intelligent, capable humans, and we're having to deprogram ourselves from these things that tell us the opposite, because that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? If you felt worthy enough, you wouldn't constantly feel the need to achieve. It wouldn't be constantly having to get the next level of something in order to be good enough. And I find that just endlessly frustrating for myself and others.
Can I actually jump in and add to that if I
Of
may?
course,
Yes, please do.
Yes.
I want to pick up on our synergies from your previous seasons of the podcast. I have a talk that I give on how to extinguish burnout and find your fire. And one of my tips is to know that your work is not your worth, because for so long I thought I was valuable because I was busy. Right. I answered emails immediately. I got in early. I stayed late. I was a top biller. And then it was just like, okay, well, your worth is not found on your timesheets or your firm bio. Like, busyness does not equal your worth. You have friends who would obviously describe me at that time as a workaholic, but they'd also say, like, you are worthy because you are kind, you're caring, you're compassionate, you're funny, you're honest. And my worth was found there, not elsewhere. But it really took me a long time to figure that out because of what you're saying with societal expectations. So I had to tack that on. I know I probably just cut off Tova, but I wanted to make sure I said that, because so much of it for me was about that busyness as well, that I know you've talked about previously in other episodes.
So I do have sort of a question about, because you said, I think that if I got this right, that your core values at your senior year, right, of college were pretty much the same as they were 10 years later. They had just been shifted, like how you sort of ranked them. So looking back, do you recall when you may have stopped sort of, because there's an assumption there that maybe you stopped listening to your inner voice, or maybe your inner voice was, telling you that this was it, this is a slog, you're stuck here. But like so the question is, maybe either do you remember when you stopped listening, or when the voice just got so quiet that you were listening, you thought was your inner voice, but it was like some mean voice instead yelling at you to do more work?
I think the voice was me convincing myself that my family would understand. Like a core value for me has always been family. And that used to be, just my husband and then, my parents and my younger brother. And I'm always canceling plans. I'm late to holidays. I'm not showing up, or I'm working all of Easter weekend. And when I say my husband, I'm including my in-laws on that, because we would travel to where he's from in New Orleans for Easter. And it's like, oh, they'll understand. They'll understand if I spend the entire weekend researching and writing a trial brief in the back room where the internet is the strongest, and just emerge for 2 hours for Easter dinner. They'll understand. They know how important this is to me. And it was just me constantly trying to convince myself that my choices were okay. That even though I loved my family more than anything else, they knew that achievement was so important to me. But it's like my actions speak louder than words. I'm constantly putting work before everything else. And by the way, my husband is a lawyer too. And he'd say, well, I'm just going to start playing golf early on Saturday mornings if you're always going to work, because what else am I going to do? And I look back and that makes me really, really sad about all of the things that I decided were more important than spending, quality time with him. So we celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary recently, and I feel lucky because like he really stuck with me through all these times when I was just so laser focused on one thing at the expense of all else, including those values.
And by the way, defending what you were doing for a minute here, if your goal was still being partner or equity partner or a named partner at a firm, he was doing the right thing, right? Like he was letting you follow what you wanted.
He was.
Right? It just turned out not to be what you wanted.
Yes.
So
and there's that embarrassment that I said I felt, right?
But I just want, for anyone listening, like if your goal is equity partner or name partner, if that's what your inner voice is screaming, like go forth and achieve. and good for your husband for being like, cool, I'm going to go golfing. You do your work. Because I think for somebody that is what their goal is. And that's okay too.
Right. Yeah. So to be clear, there is nothing wrong with having a goal. Like we're not suggesting.
I agree.
There's like three women on this episode. There's like, yep, I decided that I don't want to practice law anymore.
Yeah. That doesn't mean we have no goals. It just means that wasn't. Yeah. That goal didn't pan out to be the one we actually meant to keep. Right.
Right.
Like,
right.
We achieved something and then we went, no, that's not actually working out the way I thought it would.
Yeah. No, thanks. Yeah. And there were no boundaries. And that's really what I'm getting at. Like I just I was burnt out and I didn't know it.
Yeah. So now looking at the present day, right? Is there any component in your day-to-day of sort of letting go or faith or trust in the universe, or we're a little wooey around here, so if you've listened to the show, which I have that helps you embrace your power, or any sort of like rituals or daily kind of things that you do that help you stick to the plan that you have?
So I'm probably not as, I guess, woo-woo to use your words, but I'm a big believer in like mantras and like giving myself pep talks, right? So I've been talking with my hands this whole time. You probably say, wear all these bracelets and they all have words on them. And, they say things like manifest, slow down, be patient, grateful, be present. And that is so when I am falling into my old default mode of multitasking too much, or not saying no when I should, I can just like look down and be like, that's right. Like slow down, or like manifest. Like you want to manifest your dreams. It's going to take some hard work, but you can do it. So it sounds silly, but these are little word project bracelets. And for me, they really kind of click everything into place. And that's why I have so many on my wrists, because they work for me. And that's my mantra, or my spiritual reaffirmation, I guess.
No, I think that's fantastic. We use mantras all the time. We put them in every newsletter we send out, and I have them all over my house.
I was gonna say we have them all over our house.
I think they're fantastic. I get them. They pop up on my phone. It's one of the notifications I get on my phone because I can't help but read it, and then I read it, and then it sticks in my head. And it's just a great way to remind ourselves of whatever it is the mantra says. And I love your idea, because then it's super simple. It's just a word. It's not even like a long, like some of mine are long-winded. Shocker. A long-winded lawyer. And so, but just a simple word to like, reiterate it into your mind that this is your goal, and this is your thought process, and this is the way you want to change your thought process, right?
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. I think it's a great way to help you stay the course of, calling in your power, keeping your power sort of back to where you want it to be, staying on your path, your purpose, and not falling back, like you said, not falling back into the habits that were unhealthy for you.
Yeah, 100%. And my one bracelet that says patience, I'm always looking for it because I have a kindergartner, right? And
Yes.
so I'm like, all right, just
Same.
patience, like you patience, you could do this. And I just touch it, and I don't know if I'm touching the right one, but it just is like a trigger for
Yeah.
me. So they
So
work.
I'm
I
gonna
have a
need one of
question.
those.
I have a question for you that I would be if I were listening, if like Tova from like 5 years ago or longer, 10 years ago, maybe even was listening to this, I'd be like, okay, but how did you get there? So we've gotten to the point that you're a partner and you're burnout and you're feeling embarrassed that you've worked so hard for this goal, that your priorities are still your priorities, but they're in the wrong order. And now you have mantras on your wrists, right? So it's only been, I don't know, maybe not that long, it doesn't sound like, between, 5 years. Okay.
Yes.
So we have 5 years from you feeling, maybe, I don't know how you were feeling, embarrassed, like frustrated, disappointed in yourself. And now you have your own business. You have a job that gives you flexibility that I think you really like. You're good at it. And you have mantras on your, in bracelets on your wrist. So how did you get from point A, if that's point A, it's probably point like Y, and now we're at like, point DD or something. But how did you get from that point to the other one?
I love this question because if you would have said to me 5, 6 years ago, and I left practice, it was 5.5 years ago, one day you're going to have your own business. You're going to be wearing, not a business suit with pantyhose, but you're going to be wearing, casual attire with, worded bracelets every day. I'd be like, what? Even though I knew I wanted to leave, like I never thought I'd be where I was, where I am now in my career. And I do love my job, Tova. So thank you for that. It really was launching JMT Speaks. And I launched the platform back in January of 2020. So I guess coming up on 3 years, which is crazy, where I said, I want to have the space to really talk about this journey and tell my story. And I write a weekly newsletter. And I think in a way, it's been like journaling for me, where I've had this personal evolution where I've just realized I'm on this path to better myself. And a lot of women and other professionals are on this same path where they want to find their true selves. They are, you know, they're interested in learning about, let's say, overcoming the imposter syndrome, all these things about being vulnerable and putting yourself out there in the world. So I say valuing my vulnerability has really gotten me to where I am today. To say I am overcoming my perfectionism. It is a journey I'm on, but it is through having my own platform that I have come to be, the person that's wearing 7 bracelets with mantras on them, and have, a bookshelf and a digital library through full of, these type of self improvement and personal development type books that I never thought would be part of my world, but here we are.
It's fantastic. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
What advice do you have for people who are working to kind of embrace their own power, and who, are overcoming some of the kind of things that you have had to overcome?
One thing I do remind myself of probably on a daily basis is give yourself grace. And I think because I am impatient, as I already said, and a perfectionist, I want things to just change like the snap of something or the click of the easy button. And a lot of it is giving yourself grace that it is a process, but it is a doable process. And just having the awareness that maybe you want to make these changes means so much. So I'm also about, celebrating those small wins every day that put you one step closer to where you want to be or who you think you want to be.
Yeah, I love that. Celebrating. I never learned how to celebrate. I'm just not good at
Me
it.
either.
And I think it's something to do with being a perfectionist too, because it's always like, I could have done better. Um, and so learning how to celebrate everything, I think, is so key because it also teaches you how to be grateful.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
something that Tova has helped me understand is giving gratitude. And I'm going to say it in my wooey way, but you can do it in like a non-wooey way too. Giving gratitude to the universe, to the world, to the people around you, to the energy that surrounds you helps bring positive and good things back to you, right? Like that's not why you do it. You don't do it to get good things in your life. You do it because it it's the right thing to do, because it feels good, because you're grateful, because it's, gratitude. Um
I agree. And I'm nodding because years ago, and I have a blog I wrote about this, and I've come back to it a couple of times. I used to be in that like I have to mindset. Like I have to go run to like pick up my son from school. I have to do this. And I'm like, I get to do this,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, and there was a period when I did have a gratitude journal that I've unfortunately fallen away from. But when I would write down 2 or 3 things every day that I was grateful for, and it was always, I get to, it really makes a difference. And it is the right thing to do. I agree with you there, to kind of put that positive energy out. But I'm all about mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
will
it Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
also
Tova.
I was just gonna say this is not an ad, but I just started like 2 weeks ago using the Gratitude Plus app.
Oh, I'm going to write that down.
And I really like it. You can have it send you actually affirmations throughout the day.
Oh.
And
Ooh.
also, and then it'll remind you if you want to be reminded to like share 3 things you're grateful for, but it also lets you upload pictures. So I have the tendency on my walks to just, especially this time of year where it's so spectacular, I just take pictures and then I'm like, no one on Instagram wants to see these pictures, but I have to do something with them. And so
I will look at them.
I know. Well, I could send you quite a few because I'm like, oh, look at the fog. Oh, look at the blue, like whatever.
Right.
I'm like the rain on the leaves. It's crazy. But but now I can put them in my gratitude app
I
as
like that.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
awesome.
it'll remind you like a year later, like this is what I mean, I
Right.
assume I
Yeah. Well,
have
yeah,
been doing it for
theoretically, right? It
2 weeks.
holds on to it for a while.
But
Yeah.
because I also I sometimes fall in and out of habits. And
Yes.
as I
Same.
imagine, I imagine it happens to you that like that's when that perfectionism starts getting louder is when you lose those other connections. So fingers crossed this app is working. One thing I did want to ask you, and this is once again for the people who are listening who haven't made the leap yet or are just the inner voice is getting a little loud and starting to like overcome the rest of it, the people in your life, the people that I think you were probably nervous about disappointing, and feel free to say I don't want to share how they reacted, but when you were finally like, you know what, it's time for me to leave private practice, I need to find something different, and then when you finally did find something different, how did they react?
I love this question because for so long I was so worried about what other people would think. And that means, my colleagues as well as, close friends and my family. And I was shocked. And looking back, I don't know why. Everyone was like, that's amazing. Good for you. Finally, we are so happy for you. When I thought it was going to be, are you sure? Are you sure you want to walk away from this? You've invested so much, you've achieved so much. Don't you think you're making a mistake? Or maybe you have hormones because you're a new mom or something. But no, it was none of that. People were so supportive. And just to kind of pick at that thread of, not worrying about what other people think, that is a piece of advice. We were talking about this before. I would give to others as well, thinking about making a change. We get so caught up in what we think others are thinking. And for me, like I've realized I was a bit of a people pleaser, right? Like putting everyone else's wants and needs before my own, never saying no, that it made me feel kind of icky and uncomfortable. But then I was like, well, if I don't get comfortable being uncomfortable, nothing will change. I will still be exactly where I am now. So I was pleasantly surprised and relieved, of course, as much as I knew I couldn't worry about what others thought, but very relieved that the ones who mattered were in my corner.
Well, and I asked that sort of with that caveat that like, we shouldn't worry about what other people think, but we do. And I think it's important. And I had a feeling that was going to be your answer. But I think it's important that we remember that just like we want the best for our friends, they want the best for us. And so I wanted you to, like I said, I thought that was your answer, but I wanted you to say that out loud in case there's somebody listening who needed to hear that.
It definitely is my answer. And I think because I was so close, obviously, to everything that was happening, I didn't see the burnout. I saw the cynicism. But when you're more distanced from the situation and you truly love someone and see what they're going through, you realize it's long overdue for them to make a change. And I was very, very grateful that I had the support of those who mattered.
Yeah, that's good. And I do think, Tova, you're right. Like, if people, if if we're talking about people who really love you and care about you and understand what you're going through, then they are going to be supportive of what is best for you. And no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there are people who have more of a fear-based mentality too, who are still going to have that reaction. Like,
Yep.
what do you mean you're going to leave behind
Yep.
private practice and go do legal publishing? Like, what does that mean? And it's also remembering that's a reflection on them as
Right.
well, and not you. So
Right.
it's not all, puppies and rainbows, right? But it's remembering that you have to take people where they're coming from too.
Exactly. Exactly. So we need to take our last break, which we're going to do right now. And when we come back, we will do some quick response questions. We will be right back, everyone. In case you didn't already know, we love talking.
True story. More than simply talking, we love researching, prepping, and bringing this podcast to life.
We launched We Go Boldly with the goal of reaching people dealing with the kinds of questions and concerns that we also face.
Things like how to hear my inner voice, how to make sure my habits are worth it and stick, how do I feel my feelings and still manage to function.
After years of personal work and lots of trial and error, we realized we have a lot to share on these topics.
Now we've been broadcasting for over a year, and we are proud of our podcast.
And to no one's surprise, we still have a lot to say and talk about.
We sure do. We need your help to keep going. Every episode takes time and money to create, and we would love your support.
So, if you like what we are doing, please support us by joining our Patreon community and becoming a monthly subscriber.
Join our Patreon community today at patreon.com/wegoboldly. We are so grateful to all of our supporters. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back. Right before the break, we said we were gonna do some quick response questions. Tova, you haven't had a chance to do these at all.
Oh, do I get to do it?
I mean, I am happy to do them, as you know, but I feel like I've hogged them all this season.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready to do them. Yeah. So,
all right.
5 questions. I cannot ask any follow-ups. You do not have to answer them in like one word, of course, because that would be impossible. But succinct answers is what we're looking for here.
Got it.
So, what is on your nightstand?
My nightstand has about a dozen unread hard copy books and a mother's 5-year journal and a pen.
Awesome. Who is at the top of your playlist right now?
I am actually binging on Hamilton right now because I've been using some of the metaphors in one of my recent talks.
Number 3 is how do you relax?
I love to read. I'm an avid reader.
Okay. What is your favorite beverage?
Sparkling water.
And last but not least, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
This is a tough one, but the piece of advice I'd say that has stuck with me the most is my father saying when I was younger, there is no substitute for preparation. And I'm sure that plays right into my perfectionist tendencies, but it has certainly worked over the years.
Awesome.
That's the thing with advice. Sometimes it's like good and helpful, but simultaneously stressful.
Yes. And let me tell you, just answering those questions was stressful because there's so much more I wanted to say. I was trying to keep it brief, so I'm sure it's not to follow up, but if I could tag on the advice one, a great piece of advice that someone told me was always expect to win.
Oh, I like it.
And that was like, oh, I've never heard that one before. I love it. So sometimes when I'm feeling like, I don't know, like, can I do this podcast? You know, can I complete this task? It's like, no, expect to win, right? Expect to win. And you just kind of like put your game face on and do it. So that's another one, but I won't elaborate on any other response.
No, I love it. I recently at a women's conference I was at, someone said to live life as if it's rigged in your favor. And that's one that I want to like put on my wall, because I think so often we prepare for like the worst case scenario. And sometimes we have to do that to overcome anxiety, but like, what if we just assume that it would all work out? Like,
yeah. Or for me, something good happens and I'm like, well, the other shoe's going to drop. Something's going to happen, right? Like, got to even out. So I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. Where can people find you? What are your, socials? How do people track you down if they want to hear more?
Thank you so much for asking. So my website is www.jmtspeaks.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn under my name, Jennifer Marino Thibodaux. I also have a company page, JMT Speaks LLC. And I am on Instagram at JMT Speaks. I am not on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or anything else. Those I don't have the bandwidth for right now, but they can find me elsewhere and hopefully sign up to stay in contact with me by signing up for my blog and newsletter, which is a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, it has been lovely talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We loved having you. And for everyone else, we will be back next week with more on embracing your power, more season 7, more new introductions probably, because I like to change it up and keep Tova guessing. And, don't forget, everyone, if you want to reach out to us or talk to us, you can find us on social media. You can email us. You can send us messages. I don't know. We're around. You can find us. And if you have suggestions for our 100th episode, send us those as well. Otherwise, we will talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.